Hello, everyone, and welcome back to This Week in Guns, brought to you by Patriot Patch Company, VZ Grips, MAF Corporation, and FFL Payment Processing. This show offers commentary on the latest firearms industry news, information, and buzzing sounds. I'm your host, Matthew Rosier. I'm joined by my rat para-illegal Ivan, and we've got a special guest, Mr. Karl of Forgotten Sea and Arsenal Range Television.
Yeah, that's it. That channel is amazing, and I'm brought to you by no sponsors, but it's actually, of course, inRange TV, but so famously, no longer so much famously, completely crowdfunded, no sponsors whatsoever, no gods, no masters. So we're still here because of true viewer support, which is pretty amazing after now almost 10 years, working on 10 years now. So I have to be really thankful to the kind of people that have been willing to stick around for this crazy ride.
No, that's fantastic. It really is. It's really hard because Ivan and I we do a small gun review thing where it's kind of different, where because we don't talk about kind of like martial use of the guns or whatever. We just talk about it from an engineering perspective, and we took the hard line of like, no, like we have to be clean because we're going to dump on all of these guns. And then it's you've been at it for 10 times longer than we have, and so it becomes pretty obvious pretty quick why so many people are shills.
Oh yeah. No, that's true. And I got to say, it was like, quite honestly, the reason that, when inRange first started, which was now, like I said, 10 years ago, right off the bat, the goal was to not play into the YouTube game. We tried to be on an alternative platform, which back then was called Full 30. It died, like all alternatives to YouTube died because of the internet's oligarchy as it is. We can talk about that later if we want, but like Full 30 died. It was obvious there was no way to have a viewer base unless you were on YouTube. And so then went to YouTube, briefly was monetized by YouTube, and then saw the corrupting influence of not only the monetization, but the sponsorship stuff and all those things. And way early on, I mean, you can go back and look at the channel, like I said, like 8 years ago, whatever. And there's a video of me deleting my AdSense, going completely demonetized. And while that was for me old, like, people always like try to make fun of everything you ever say, but that was old hacker mentality for me, which is like never been into the corporations personally. Don't like them. I think they're as dangerous as governments and other things. So I mean, they have benefits and detriments, but I don't want any control. So went demonetized, and it actually turned out to be more of a prescient action than I thought it was even then, because then it was more of a moral stance. But in reality, with what YouTube's doing with demonetization of anything that isn't, cats or outright disgusting content, the reality is you're not monetized even if you're doing nothing wrong at this point. So it turned out to be a really good call, regardless of my initial motivations, I'll say.
Yeah, a shocking amount of this show is age restricted. And this show is like an attorney and engineer nerding out over attorney and engineer things, and we get age restricted content. So it's just like
you can't have an adult. You can't even have a PG conversation anymore without this going on. But the thing is that I know this was pointed out, not to talk about inRange a bunch, but it's interesting because like way back when the hijinks have been part of inRange for a long time. Like at one point I put my content on Pornhub as a
I remember that.
As a stance against the censorship and control of these oligarchies, and that got really big and interviewed by Vice and all this stuff, and that goes back years and years and years ago. And there's a video I did that I still, to this day, you watch it this year, a year ago, probably 3 years from now, and I was basing it on the book from Ray Bradbury, Fahrenheit 451, in which the firefighters don't put out fires, but they burn books and data and information. And that's what YouTube's doing, because the YouTubes really has been like the great library of Alexandria, sitting there with all the information. Anything you want is there in ways that's digestible by anyone. And here they are burning it down, and it's disturbing, frankly, very disturbing.
Oh, it's fucked up. Actually, so what introduced me to your content? This is tell you how long ago it was. Is when you welded up those Set Me Ls.
Yeah, that was a fun one. Thanks for watching all this time. Yeah,
this is great, right? And then and I watched it, and that was a long time ago. And then I finally got a kit, and I felt like an archaeologist trying to find that video. Which is terrible because it was purely informative, right?
No, that's what I had to do. So I had no choice, right? So this is the thing. One of the things that I still by the way, I promote this to anyone creating content on the internet, regardless of it's YouTube or anything. Again, hacker ethos. Decentralize your distribution as much as you can. Don't be on one platform, be on 100 if you can, because the reality is you can't trust any of them. And when stuff gets burned down by things like Google, remember, don't be evil. So the set me L videos still exist, but I had to throw them on Vimeo, and I had to retroactively go back and be careful about content on my channel because, as you all know, everyone knows this now, they will retroactively strike you for content that they've made a policy for tomorrow.
Right.
And people will be like, well, don't be a coward. But the reality is, if you lose your YouTube channel, you've lost your reach to the people because you have to be where the eyeballs are. The viewers determine where the content is, not the content creator, because where they watch it is where you got to be. And if you're not there, you're not part of the conversation anymore.
For sure. Yeah. It's fucked up. And the thing that I noticed the most is that people are so willing to say, oh, go on Rumble or this or that, or go on Odyssey. And it's like, you know how I know you didn't check if I'm on there?
Because I've
been uploading them.
so like that's the thing is like, so yeah, I'm on all those. I'm not on Rumble. Well, some of my stuff's on Rumble, but the Rumble synchronization broke. They did something, and Rumble's synchronization with YouTube broke. But like, if you go to my website, you can find it. But my favorite still to this day is a thing called BitChute. And the reason I like BitChute is because it is the most, nothing is truly, but the most decentralized distribution network. It uses WebTorrent, and it doesn't have as much a centralized data repository, and it's really hard to burn stuff down out of BitChute. And so that's the one I prefer. But what I would love is something, I mean, if we could go to a truly decentralized web of trust content distribution, that would be a dream, because then no one could do anything about it.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of tech, and the reality is the most people don't have time for that or care, and so they open the app and they click the home button and they watch whatever YouTube feeds them. That's the thing I found is most interesting, is the subscribe button exists, and even if you go to your subscribe, sometimes you still don't see the content because of shadow banning. But I've come to find more and more people now don't even use the subscribe button. They just click on home or just open the app, and whatever the default feed is, they watch that. And if they don't see it, if they don't see you because YouTube's decided not to promote you algorithmically, they think you haven't put out a video in months. This happens. I see this a lot. And that's weird, because you're not trusting a corporation to tell you what to watch. And that just goes against everything in my bones. But that's another thing.
So, you know what, just mentioning that, I am somebody who on my personal YouTube account, I have a personal YouTube account that I use for consuming. I'm a motherfucker about that. Like, I will content I don't like, I'll say, don't show me this, like that. And then even still, I get fed garbage. Like, I've made it so clear to YouTube, I've subscribed to a bunch of channels, and it will just still try to sneak in the weird brain rot shit. And I don't click it. Like, I have not, people, I'm not being moralistic, but I think that sex marketing is like an insult to human male intelligence. I don't click it. Period.
Okay. Yeah.
My shorts tab is just softcore porn.
It's always full of it. Yep.
Oh, yeah, no, totally. Just like, I know what you're saying. So one would think the algorithm is based, they like to tell you the algorithm is based on your viewing content and your behaviors. And there's probably some element to that, but the reality is the algorithm is based on whatever the marketing dollars are. It's not immoral. It's amoral. They don't care what they'll feed you, and they don't care what they put into society as long as they're making dollars on it. And they've got you tagged at least some demographic, and therefore they're going to feed you cam girls all day long, because that's where the money is, at least for a lot of what you would be as your prime demographic, right? So like me, I had the same thing. I don't look at that either. And for the longest time, I was getting fed on Facebook, not on YouTube. Like stuff that I would actually say was beyond R rated, like somewhere between R and X. And I was like, first of all, remember when Facebook was like the most not like that in terms of like their weird pearl clutching? And now straight up, I'm like, wow, that kind of shows you how far Facebook's fallen in terms of their monetization. But then the algorithm changed. And now the new thing I'm getting, I don't know why, are farewell videos from people dying of cancer. And I'm like, And
People love this shit.
and it's like I open YouTube and I'm like, and it's like it's heart wrenching, and it's there, and I don't want to, but like, I don't know what did that. I wasn't clicking on that either, but that's where it's at now. So I don't know.
Yeah, super strange. But you know what's not super strange? VZ Grips Corporation Inc. of Florida. They are a good and morally high ground company, and they are the longest time supporter of the show. So you should go to vzgrips.com and use promotional code ThisWeek15. That will let the overlords know that I am serving my purpose. I am a cog spinning correctly in this machine. Look, they even have grips for good guns, like such as the Browning High Power. You can.
What about the Thunderstruck S333 dual 22 Magnum self-defense staple gun? I need grips for that.
Do they have that?
I hope not. No one should have grips for that.
My favorite gag on inRange of all times was when you had the Ouija board and you tried to tried to contact the spirits to find out if
I used it as the planchette. Yeah.
Try to find out if 2 rounds of 22 Magnum is a useful option for self-defense, and it spells out who cares.
Yeah, that was great. I bought a Thunderstruck because of you.
No,
because I was like, there's no way.
After that quality stunning review, you bought one anyway.
I did. Well, and also I bought one that was internet famous. It had been built by Standard Manufacturing twice. So there was this huge Facebook kerfuffle where, and like Standard Manufacturing made a post saying like, if you act like this, do not purchase our quality firearms. This individual thought that he could take it apart himself and send us an incomplete box of parts. And I'm like,
I remember that.
So I looked into it.
Yeah.
Well, the guy was actually a friend of mine. His name's Andrew. And he showed me the whole email chain where he said, I need the transfer bar. The gun is like, I took it apart. I just need the transfer bar. We don't do parts. You have to send us the gun. I already took it apart. The transfer bar is broken in half. Just give me that. No, you have to send in the gun. He said, okay, just understand. I'm going to send you a box of parts because why would I reassemble it? It's actually kind of complicated. Yeah, no, we get it. And then the next thing he knows is they've made that post and then threatened him that they're going to charge him the price of the gun. And so I helped him negotiate getting it back from the company. But the deal was that I buy it from him. So I got the reassembled one. And guess what the left barrel does?
I bet it tumbles.
The keyholes, yeah.
Oh yeah. I the reality is with inRange, I'll always report the truth. I hope that that's evident in my content, but I do honestly give people a chance to at least fix stuff. I'll talk about it later. And before I put out that video, I went to them and I'm like, hey, this is bad news. Like I can't hit a target at 3 yards here. Like what? And they flat out didn't even reply. They didn't reply ever. I sent them like multiple emails saying, okay, hello.
You were doing it wrong.
All right, I guess. All right, okay. Now I'm going to do the video, but like they didn't even bother replying with what was. I mean, not just. I guess mine wasn't the only defective gun. I guess they mostly all are.
My right barrel shoots dead on.
One of mine did too. I don't remember in the video, but if you shot only one round if it was only one barrel, it wasn't. People were thinking it was the disruption of the gases as both bullets were leaving, but that wasn't my experience. Yeah. One barrel worked and one didn't. It didn't matter if there was 2 rounds or 1 round. Like one would sometimes not keyhole. Maybe mine was the right one too. Probably has something to do with their machining or something. I don't know. But a later variant
have anything to do with indexing 2 cylinders is just a bad idea.
It might not be. The other thing that they tried to do later, and I wondered about what they were trying to fix, was if you notice they made the barrels a little longer. There's like a little stub coming out the front after it was like the 2nd gen one. I don't know if that made a difference, but I don't know. I don't know. And then of course, when they keyhole, it means it does more damage. It's more lethal. It's that went on forever.
You're gonna hit him with the tumbler. It's the Viet norm.
The tumbler, exactly. And it's like
the 1 in 12.
Some of that stuff is on. You can't cure that.
Oh no, it's hardwired. It's just like the AR-15 is my sportsman. AR-15, not military.
the new thing I'm seeing now that's been going on for a while is any AR-15. Like I have an old Colt Sporter from the 80s that's got, the carry handle, and it's got it's a slick side. It's the one that was actually the gun that inspired the What Would Stoner Do project. And that video, I get comments all day long now about that's not an AR-15, that's an M16. You're an idiot. I don't know where that's coming from, but
that's turbo deranged, because there's the camp of people who will tell you the M16 isn't an AR-15 because it's got an auto sear, and AR-15s can't have auto sears, which is like, okay, sure, buddy. And then it's like the turbo deranged crowd will then take you to, oh no, that gun without an auto sear is an M16 because it has a carry handle. It's not an AR-15 because AR-15s have flat tops. Just the people's brains have rotted quite severely at this point.
But is it mil spec? That's the thing that matters.
Is it mil spec?
Is it mil spec?
Which is especially funny with SP1s because barrels came off the same production line, uppers were the same production line with a machining step or two skipped, lowers were the same production line, machining step or two altered. It's
the lower is the same production line, and then they ground off the marking.
Yeah, so I mean, with the original Sporters, right, the way they got through to the way they made the consumer semi-auto models, everyone probably knows this, but they didn't mill out a section of the lower receiver where the full auto sear would go, and for a long time they just drilled out the front pivot hole or pin into a screw, and those were the two major differences Colt made back ye oldie Colt to make them not compatible with full auto parts. But I mean, you're right. All it was changing a couple machining operations, and otherwise it was the exact same gun, same barrel, same everything.
Yep. And what's super funny is that early on the ATF, and we were talking about this is when we were going over one of my filings in an AR-15 related case. But early on the ATF's like, oh, the only way to make sure your AR-15 is not a machine gun is to use and it says original Colt SB1 bolt carrier and then trigger and a couple other parts. And then we went and looked, and the very first SP1s and Comanches just used M16 parts.
Oh yeah, mine has a full auto bolt carrier, and it's the original Colt Sporter right out of the box. So yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, the original ones had also a M16 disconnector
and an M16 trigger.
Yeah, just that it was just prevented it from moving all the way.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, next up we've got a fun story. This is about the I don't even know what to call these people. The attempters. We have in the district court for the Southern District of Florida, factual proffer in support of pretrial detention of Ryan Wesley Ruth, who is the SKS marksman. And there's a lot of interesting information in this that we're getting for the first time, such as the fact that he was not that far from having a 50-foot shot on the president. He was, he was posted up here near hole 6, right? And when they apprehended him, Trump was at hole 5, as I understand it. He was playing, so it would have gotten there. But the two charges are, and I love this, they're, having the firearm with the defaced serial number and possession of a firearm when you're a convicted felon.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the serial deface, which is great. I think we can tell that's a Chinese.
Yeah, Norinco.
Yeah. Well, we can't be 100% sure whether it's Norinco or the factory, that other factory, but it's quite a job there, isn't it? And
well, I mean, that aftermarket stock gives you like a plus 100 on accuracy. So.
The combat exchange, brother.
Yeah.
The combat exchange stock.
What's funny is thinking about this whole thing, which is, and he had the fantastic 30-round magazine that probably didn't work. The thing is about this that's interesting about this is, like, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't even provide the concept of legal advice, but he didn't technically fire a shot. He was in a weird place with a plan, left a letter behind. So now they charged him with what they can charge him with, but can they go further based on the letter and the intent, right?
I don't think so. I'll do the attempt analysis in a second because it's actually super interesting, and I'm glad you asked that. But I want to read this scrawl. Dear world, this was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump, but I am so sorry I failed you. I tried my best and gave it all the gumption I could muster. It is up to you now to finish the job, and I will offer $150,000 to whoever can complete the job. everyone across the globe, from the youngest to the oldest, know that Trump is unfit to be anything, much less a U.S. president. U.S. presidents must, at bare minimum, embody the moral fabric that is America and be kind, caring, and selfless, and always stand for humanity. Trump fails to understand any of. And it goes on to say, he ended relations with Iran like a child, and now the Middle East has unraveled. So this is just normal behavior.
Well, I mean, pretty clearly there's some unhinged nature of this human being, right? Something's wrong.
Well, this
with
is
person.
Palm Beach, Florida, so that, like, he may be from North Carolina, but he clearly drank the water.
He's imbibing Florida, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and then my other favorite part here is the first thing I thought because everyone was at first saying, oh, it was a 500-yard shot, and they didn't have the information that we now have, right? That if he hadn't been caught, it would have been a 50-footer. But when I saw that SKS, I'm like, those top cover scopes are wibbly and wobbly, but our man had that under control. That is electrical.
He took a pack of hemorrhoid cream to make an eye cup, by the way.
Yeah.
Look at that electrical tape.
Yep. So that's a hemorrhoid cream eye cup, electrical tape to the scope, which is then about 8 wraps of electrical tape down onto the stock. And then also the charging handle. Yeah.
Jacked up with tape too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Well, as gun guys, we always like fixate on the gear and all this, but let's not forget that the big creature flew by here. The most influential firearm development in Japan was an electro-fired blunderbuss shotgun. So the reality is the gear frequently doesn't matter, and the motivation and the person can do a lot with really crap stuff. So that's an SKS, and that speaks to the person's I think that whole setup speaks to this person's mental health, but that SKS could have done the job.
Yep. It was certainly, I mean, I like SKSs. I don't configure them like that, but it's certainly a gun.
I don't know. That seems like the quintessential American SKS nowadays at this point. They all look like that.
Yeah. Well, in Florida, we get issued these at birth. Sporterized SKS.
Here's your SKS and you're thunderstruck. You're good to go.
Watch out for the gators.
I do. I also have that. So, speaking of which, by the way, the Abe gun was inspired by the work of Suckboy Tony. You know of him?
No, actually, I don't.
Oh, he's a fan of yours, actually, because he came up with a electrically ignited, fully DIY plasma gun.
Well, I apologize. Maybe I do. Like, the names flow by a lot, and I apologize to anyone out there that I maybe should or shouldn't remember sometimes, because there's a lot of people out there. But it was funny. It was like I did a presentation. inRange did. 2016. Yeah, DEF CON in their what was their at that time Sky Talks presentations, which are no longer run at DEF CON. But the presentation, which no one got to see except those who were in the room, I still have the PowerPoint, was I'm going to go ahead and go with pretty darn prescient, because the discussion was about the emergence of the next few years of incredibly viable home manufactured firearms, either through additive printing or just like jury rigged junk. And now we're seeing like those predictions were actually behind, because the stuff being made now is like unbelievably, sometimes in many ways, better than the crap you buy from a manufacturer.
We wouldn't know anything about that.
I would. I'm going.
Well, I mean, look at the 3D printing community. They're making some incredible stuff.
Yeah, those guys are up to date.
Right. I mean, it's like, and still technically legal, right? Because manufacture of your own firearms, and much of this country, if you do it properly, is still legal. So like the stuff those guys are developing, and some of those developments that are happening technologically really do go back to American tradition, right? I mean, John Browning was in his garage whittling away and making amazing guns. These
Yeah.
people are doing more innovative stuff than we're seeing coming out of companies.
John Browning, a Mormon, thinking about different ways to kill Illinoisans.
but I mean, that's the old home, like, gee whiz, I'm going to be good at this, and he was.
Well, it goes way further back than that. And I mean, as somebody who's invested in the parts kit market, right? Because I have a parts kit company, but so take this with a grain of salt. But like the parts kit culture actually is deeply rooted in American tradition, because back then, what was the most complicated part of the gun at the founding era? The lockwork.
Sure.
So they would import shitloads of locks from Spain, France, and the Netherlands, and just attack, and then come up with their own barrels and stocks. Mm-hmm. That was like early American gunsmithing. It was importing a lock. That's like that's the 80% of its day. Just sticking a lock onto a cool piece of metal you found, right? So it's super cool, and like these ideas that the idea that it's like this is new and it's brought about just by 3D printing is like incredibly brain dead, because it's actually that the norm was we're completing guns based on imported parts, and then there was about a 200-year period where that kind of went away, because there was virtually no restriction on the importation of firearms, and so people weren't really bothering. Then when does it become relevant again? When do parts kits exist again? When the government says, hey, brown people, I don't like that you can afford guns. You're not allowed to import them anymore. And so parts kits became a thing, and all of a sudden, we're building stuff from parts kits, right? And surplus to that matter too. I don't know if you've read the book, this nonviolent stuff, or that nonviolent stuff will get you killed. But there's some amazing stories in there that are left off the general discussion of, and I use the words that seem to trigger people, but like true community defense, in which people, like a whole community of Black people, people of color, armed up with M1 Garens and old M1 steel pots and fended off the Klan, literally. And I mean, yeah, here's another one that'll get people fired up. Seize the means of manufacture, right? But that's what this is. Like, if you allow corporations to dictate what you can own, then you are still providing another pathway to a monopoly of violence and power. Yep. Right. Or you could work with good corporations like mine that want to hand you.
Oh yeah, no, of course. I'm not. By the way, when I say stuff like that, I'm not. I
know.
I'm painting with a broad brush. There's lots of good people out there doing good stuff, but like allowing.
No, but like who's responsible for the GCA? It was the American gun companies, right? Who has the most to lose from affordable guns? People who don't know how to make affordable guns.
Yep.
Right. So it all goes full circle, and even so, I've had years of experience working on the national gun rights space, and there was one thing I was never allowed to go after when I was working at the national orgs, and they were like, Matt, don't fucking touch the import tax stuff. Like, don't talk about it. Because our donations, that's where blah, blah, blah. And so I'm like, okay, I'm out on my own. And I'm pointing the finger, and some people are listening. So that's nice. But so the thing you're saying is like very technically correct, right? Despite painting with a super broad brush. I don't know if it's that, like, if it's corporations as an editorial like thing, because a lot of the largest firearms entities are family owned, right? And they have huge reasons to restrict supply, but it's entrenched power is what it is. Whether it's corporations or whether it's this government or foreign governments, they like it the way it is now, and the way it is now is that you're getting fucked over, so they're going to resist it becoming unlike the way it is now. It's not necessarily that they want to fuck you over, it's that they don't want to lose their seat of power, right? Oh
yeah, no, totally. Like, so this is the thing about like systemic power and money that continues to exist regardless of like cataclysmic social and cultural upheaval and change. Like, so when it comes to the NFA, there's a lot of reasons that the NFA, obviously it's unconstitutional, and I agree with that 100%. And I think things need to change there. And I think a large part of the reason the NFA hasn't changed is because there's a lot of people that have a lot of money invested in a lot of NFA stuff. And if that were to fall, those investments fall through the floor. Another cultural, social example of that, which is so, if you look around, and this isn't gun related, but it's the same kind of stuff, pre-Civil War, the money in the South or at least Louisiana is one good example, was with the planter class, the people that owned people. They had all the money. The war ends. They theoretically lost that. We have sharecropping and all that continuing. But if you go down and look around now, a bunch of those plantations and all that old money is still getting rich. They're just moved it over to petroleum. But it's the same families, the same plantations, the same money still has all the power. It's interesting.
Yeah, that whole time in our country was super fucked up.
Yeah, but I mean, if you go down there now, like the Destrehan plantation, which is where the 1811 enslaved revolt started, is now rich as heck. I don't know what language we can use on your podcast here.
You can say whatever you want.
Rich as fuck, and it's all petroleum. Like there's a place in Louisiana called Cancer Alley because it's like all these petroleum distillates, and they're just pumping toxins into the air in massive numbers. But the reality is, it's all on plantations that had money then and have money now. And the reality is, they never lost their power; they just changed it.
One of the most fun things about you probably love Frederick Douglass as much as I do.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But the minimum wage in the North, everyone's like, "Oh, Lincoln was so great. He was doing a big emancipation." Yeah, right. That's why he totally freed slaves during his lifetime. That's why he tried really hard to do that. But like, where did the minimum wage come from? It was Southern blacks who were like, "Hey, I have a business idea. Let's build stuff faster than these lazy white people." and they're like, and then in New York they're like, "Whoa, no, you can't do that."
Well, I don't know if you wanted to get in all this like social stuff right now, but like that's like the talking about something going on right now. This wasn't on your agenda, but like the massive amount of people that are working that are currently being targeted by terrible propaganda in Springfield, Ohio. They weren't brought there because they were brought there by the government as much as there were corporations there that had jobs that no one else would do. No one wanted to do that work. And that's why all these people that they came in here as refugees away from a terrible system that maybe was created by other terrible reasons. And then they get here and they need to make money and be able to survive. And they land up with a job that no one wants because it's the only place they can get gainfully employed without a high school diploma or a college degree or whatever.
So that's why they got to eat the cat.
Yeah, well,
they become election.
Yeah. No, but you know what I'm going with this. Like, there's reasons that these things happen, and they're not simple.
Well, just so you know, I'm half French and half Jamaican, so I should never be asked about the Haitian people.
Oh, boy, Haiti. Yeah, that's another one. Like, there's a reason Haiti's got problems, and the entire world allied against them after their successful revolution against slavery. But
except Poland.
Yeah.
Except Poland.
But I mean, when the whole, like, who was it? Was it George Carlin who said this? If I forgot who said this. There was a great quote though. I think it was George Carlin. If the whole world's against you, vote on the world. Like, it was either George Carlin or Frank Zappa. I don't remember, but it was a good quote.
Zappa, good shoes. Was it
Zappa?
I don't know.
I don't remember, but it's a good quote. And like, Haiti had the whole world against them, right? So that's tough.
Yeah. Let's just give them more rice. That'll fix it. Dump more rice in their economy. But anyway,
the bugs have taken over my drink.
Right. Oh no. Oh yeah. And if you guys haven't noticed, Karl's smoking a cigar.
Yep.
Ivan is holding the Jeep Wagoneer of shotguns, and I have rice wine. So we are unintentionally AFT right now.
It just seemed like right. I was first time on your show. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invite and your persistence in actually getting me to do something worth doing, which is being here with you all. But like, you talked about it as being a cool hangout, so I figured we'd make it a cool hangout. So I'd enjoy.
Yeah, no, for sure. And just so you guys know, what he's talking about in my persistence is that I kept showing him more of my body, and I told him the camera would pan up 1 degree for every day he didn't respond.
No, that's it. The stuff that's going on with Sean Puffy Combs doesn't hold a candle to that.
Yeah, he only got to the ankles. But so speaking of the Trump attempter, is he going to do a Broen? It's the Politico is just such a wonderful thing. The Supreme Court expanded gun rights because there's no such thing as recognition, right? It's either expanding or contracting. That could complicate the Trump assassination attempt case. And this is low effort think piece about the fact that he was charged with felon in possession. The thing is, though, felon in possession cases are at risk for like the purely nonviolent stuff. This guy was like, he had a machine gun charge, which I don't think is wildly problematic, but he was also, as part of that charge, he was doing some, explodey stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's something that we need to worry about the Middle District of Florida right now overturning, or not the Southern District of Florida overturning. But the thing is this is what we were going to talk about. Are they going to be stuck with just these violation cases? So let's talk about attempt. So for attempt, you have to complete the steps of the action. This is a common law, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's, if everything were as you had planned it, it would have been successful. I don't remember if we know whether or not he shot.
I don't think I think the latest reports have been he did not.
My understanding is they found him before he was able to as well, but he was like lined up to do so, right? That's my current understanding.
Yeah,
he did that with sniper side, so
with his little plate. That was my attempt. Would be hard.
But I mean, he left a letter behind of intent for sure, and on top of that, like, talk about here. Let me make a cultural reference that's like seems unrelated, but here's an example. Like, go back to the Manson family trials. When they got Charles Manson, he was technically not involved in the direct murders that the current at the time case was against him for. The others in his quote family conducted them, but they were under his instruction to do so, and they got him. But it was like a really interesting, like, challenging court case because it was his conspiracy. I don't know if that's the right word because I'm not speaking legalese here, but it was his instructions and direction that got him ultimately convicted, even though he was guilty of many other things as well, including murder that wasn't part of the original case. This seems similar to this because this guy had intent, left behind a letter, had obvious actions and machinations to do something, and then was there ready to do it. I don't think there's any world we're going to see that guy get out, frankly, but I don't know what weird legal machinations they're going to use to get him. And then what are the ramifications of those legal actions towards other people who may not be justifiably charged similarly? I don't know. This is tough because they're going to get him, but at what cost to other future legal cases does that incur? Does that make sense?
So,
yeah.
Yes, it does. Yeah, right. It's like, how hard will they stretch the law?
Right.
And
that's what I'm kind of trying to say. Yeah.
I don't think they have to because they can do aggravating factors under the other statutes to put them away for a substantial period of time. But so federal law actually doesn't work like common law or most state law works like common law, where it's the underlying offense, except that it didn't happen. So there's two things in law that you need to have in order to commit a crime. And that's the actus reus, which means evil action. So you have to do the evil action with the mens reus, the evil mind. So we know he has the mens rea because he left a note saying, hey, this is what I want to do. But if your actus rea is absent, you can't be convicted. And so federal law specifically delineates what an attempted murder is. And so it's right here. And it's super unhelpful, except it's provided.
But I mean, just the threat of, so just the making the threat of an assassination towards the president is a crime in and of itself.
Well, so there are, I don't know.
But he was not, I see this is challenging because I don't know how the law works on this. He's not at the moment the president, right? So,
well, but on top of that, did he make a threat? No. I mean, that note was found ex post facto. And so obviously it was written after the fact as well, because.
Oh, because I failed. He said, yes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Unless it was like I don't know. So anyway, this is the federal attempt murder statute. Whoever within the special maritime and tourist blah blah attempts to commit murder or manslaughter shall, for an attempt to commit murder, be imprisoned not more than 20 years or fined, and for an attempt to commit manslaughter, imprisoned not more than 7 years or fined. So by the federal code, sticking to the common law, I think we get common law. So let's look at the federal murder statute. Murder is the unlawful killing of a human being with malice aforethought. Every murder perpetrated by poison, lying in wait, or other kind of willful blah blah, part of a pact, or perpetrated from any premeditated design unlawfully and maliciously to affect the death of any human being other than him who is killed is murder in the first degree. Any other murder is in the second degree. So the ultimate question is, because it doesn't have clear elements, and elements are the necessary component parts of a crime. In ordinary common law jurisprudence, an attempt murder with a missile, like with a firearm, would require the release of the missile, or at least pulling the trigger. Like, there have been attempt murder cases with an unloaded gun where the trigger was pulled when they thought it was loaded. I haven't seen it when it was just sniper's hide. It's certainly aggravated assault.
This goes back to the Manson family again.
Yeah.
Squeaky Fromm did that with an unloaded 1911. If you might remember, she went pushed through the crowd, pointed the pistol, and pulled the trigger, and it went click.
Yep.
They got her for a long. That's a really similar example to this, isn't it?
Yep.
Because she later claimed, "Oh, I knew it wasn't loaded. I was making a point." I don't believe that. She was just stupid. But but the reality is that's a real similar problem, because that was an attempt that didn't follow through. But the obvious intent, I mean, that was that the intent was obvious, right? But the action failed.
I think this is missing the actus reus of an attempted murder. And so I think if I was the prosecutor, I would focus on what I would do if I was interested in preserving the integrity of the law in the United States, which
prosecutors are totally about that.
Yeah, they love that. I would focus on the defaced serial number one. I would, because he's gonna be sentenced concurrently for them generally. So I would focus on that, and then argue. What I would do is, to avoid him trying to make a constitutional challenge, I'd offer him a plea deal to just that. And then at sentencing, I'd argue for a extraordinary upward deviation given the nature of the offense. And the nature and character of the offense, you can upwardly deviate by a shitload. So with that, I mean, you could put him in jail for probably 20 years.
Well, I think there's enough here to get rid of this guy for as long as they want to without stretching the law. I just wonder if they're going to, right? That's the question. Well, I guess we'll just have to find out. I used to be a betting man, then I kept losing, so there's no point. But yeah, I don't know what to say anymore. It's like you want to, like, there's many instances now where, like, I think it's clear I have a deep distrust of so many systems, but there's many instances we're seeing now. But there's also things we're seeing now where many times the system has tried to do the right thing in terms of, like, staying within the legal confines of their power. And I would hope that that's what they try to do with this. That's what I would say. Yeah,
I guess we'll just have to watch. I will say I'm worried because I'm familiar with, like, where it's happening. It's my hometown. So I'm a little worried, but so we'll be watching with interest. And also, I just want to say, what a great guest, because you're the first person who's come on and goaded me into talking about the common law. So
I hope you mean that. Yeah, because it's like, this is where I kind of like, this is the kind of stuff that it's interesting to talk about, because, like, everyone wants to talk about the exacts, but what's the ramification? I always find the ramifications to be far more interesting, because that's what ultimately resonates for us in our society. So what happens with this is going to have resonance in a way that and so, like each and every, that's, I guess this speaks to how much all of us, it doesn't matter what side of the politics you're on, are leery of things, because we're all kind of waiting for a system that's clearly out of control to use whatever the situation is for their enabling act. And it's like, which one is it? Is this the time? Is the next one the time? And
it's like the lever is just shiny, getting shinier and bigger every time.
Yeah, and that's scary, because like, I don't know what to make of that. And it's like, again, it doesn't matter where you are on the political spectrum. I think we all share that concern.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Well, and now something a little more lighthearted. Remington has done a advertisement on the Twitter Bird app. And this is the most like, I don't generally play videos in the stream because I haven't quite figured out how to get the audio out, but and that I'm sure I could, but it's a Remington ad, and this is the most aggressively pandery, blue collar, we're with
farm rancher 4-wheeler.
Yeah, it's the Remington ranch hand, and it shows this like portly farm American loading bizarrely a Ruger Wrangler. And why it's bizarre, I'll explain in a second. What the ad is for is not like some new, big hunt gun. It's for effectively Remington coming out with their version of CCI mini mags, and they're calling it the Remington Ranch Hand. It's reliable. It'll get the varmint. You can't afford to click it twice. And I just love that they are advertising a heightened reliability, farming utility ammunition, and then putting it in the most dog shit cast revolver that the market has ever seen. Like, I'm sorry, I don't know if you've like how much experience you've had with the Ruger Wrangler. I excitedly bought one. It's terrifyingly bad.
Really?
Way worse than the Rough Rider. I excitedly bought one. The exact one in this show, that exact coloring, because I wanted to spin around and shoot, right? And I'm not the world's best shot, but I'm pretty. Ivan will vouch for me. I'm pretty good. I nip at his heels when we go to competitions. And I was on my property, was riding my little tractor, and just like this advertisement was meant for, I saw this big ass lizard. And I was like, oh, you dumb fucker. And I pulled out my Ruger Wrangler, and this lizard was 15 feet away. And I dumped a whole cylinder, and the lizard's just staring at me. And so I put the thing on paper, and it was patterning like a shotgun. So I sent it back to Ruger, and they're like, no, the timing was completely wrong. We sent you another one, also patterns like a shotgun.
That's disappointing, just from the perspective of like, I remember there was a time, say what you will about Ruger's policies and stuff, but there was a time when they made like pretty much like reasonably priced good guns.
Yeah, I mean,
I stand by Ruger being they're innovative in the same way sort of that Kel-Tec is, only they make stuff that's more built to last than Kel-Tec's. Like, this is made to be very interesting, but my favorite hidden gem of Ruger's line is they made the Mini 14 and 44 Magnum, and they only made it for a couple of years and then stopped because the design was immature and it does shake every screw on itself loose through recoil. But it is a wonderfully weird gun.
So hardcore, it's so good, so good, and it
like,
uses that dog shit rotary mag.
Yeah, it uses a dog shit 4-shot 44 Magnum rotary mag, and just the what gets in your veins that you wake up in the morning and you're like, what this market needs? A Mini 14 and 44 Magnum, and they make it. Just
for like only a couple of years, then they're like, too cool, we're turning it off.
Well, like, this is totally, this is a Ruger too, but like one of my, because I love Old West stuff, right? If you know inRange, you know that. And like, it's not an Old West gun, but like one of the coolest things one of my favorite guns are the old Ruger Old Army percussion revolvers. Mm-hmm. Those things are awesome. Like, if you have any interest in percussion revolvers at all, just from just because they're neat, the Ruger Old Army is a phenomenal percussion revolver. And then they decided,
super well built.
Oh my gosh, things are tanks, and they're accurate and reliable. They are almost as reliable as a cartridge gun in percussion, and just as powerful as 45 ACP when you load them up right. And what they do, we're not going to make those anymore. Yeah, it's like, okay, weird, cool.
What's interesting though? Your Kel-Tec comparison, Ivan, is good, because they are just like Kel-Tec in that they have expensive guns that are really good. And then there's the rest of them.
Yep.
Right? like people are like, oh, I would never get a Kel-Tec or whatever, but like I adore my RFB. I think my RFB is my favorite Title I gun. I adore the RDB, but those are expensive guns. And then like you get a PF9 and it's like, wow, yeah, this is functional. It's like on the ragged edge of being a locked breech handgun. I think Ruger might be the same way.
So say your favorite thing about this gun. It works.
Well, on that note, so I forget the model number. I always forget these model numbers. What's is it the PF57 or the 57 one that takes the
yeah
it's it's cyberpunk as heck. And in fact, I'm using it in Cyberpunk Division for our next brutality match. And that thing, it's fun. Is it practical? Absolutely not. Is it cyberpunk? Absolutely. Would it fit in Blade Runner? Yeah. And the one I have is like super reliable. So Kel-Tec is so weird and hit and miss.
I have one of those too. It does not miss a beat. It is infuriating that thing is $1,000.
Right.
Because it's made of like a potato chip and just a straight blowback bolt, but it does work. Anyway, so that was the Remington.
I think what we're seeing here is companies don't know what to do to stay valid in a declining market. Like the economy's bad. Yeah. Guns are generally, well, some of them, most of them should be durable goods, and you have to be coming up with something weird or neat, or otherwise you got nothing to sell.
I have an idea. So, you put rails and giant loops on lever guns.
No, don't, please.
No, I have a different idea.
Chamber it in
5.7. Yeah, just chamber it in 5.7.
5.7 lever action, giant loop, pick rail.
Giant loop, pickle tinny rail, pistol brace.
Mare's leg without any, just a mare's leg, like worthless piece of junk. And that's the lever gun everyone would want, right?
Mare's leg with a QD attachment on the back.
Oh, well, you got a QD socket. Yeah. QD socket.
Cover it in M-Lock too.
You know what else is a great gun corporation? MAF Corporation, which, I did it wrong. MAF Corporation, guys. MAF Corporation. Go to MAF Corporation and purchase whatever you want. Remember, the MP5 stuff is in stock right now. A bunch of AK stuff is in stock. And the Set Me L, that's a big and important one. It is all a great value. And if you use promotional code FUDBusters, you'll get 10% off your order. So go to maf-arms.com and use code FUDBusters.
By the way, the Set Me L is a really cool gun. If like the original, even Spanish ones are cool as long as you replace all the spring.
Yeah, no, I have several. I love them. It's a real slept-on gun, and the Amigo Verde takes all of the hard work out of it. So, if you look at MAF on the price of a Set Me L kit, I don't think you can go wrong with that. They're super soft shooting.
It's remarkable how soft they are, really, and in the printed build. Whenever a printed build, you start with a kit that's got the barrel pre-pressed in. It really is as simple as like you slap the thing together like you would a Glock or an AR, and then out the other end of it you have a neat soft shooting gun. And especially when you compare it to like 3D printed AR uppers, right? Just not having a gas system takes so much heat back out of the action that with the roller delayed setup, you're 2 or 3 mags in a PLA plus gun, whereas 1 mag in a PLA plus upper, and it's starting to get sad. Right. So just the difference in heat that roller delayed actions present to the sort of chamber area is substantial compared to the AR's gas tube pissing heat back everywhere.
Yep, big difference. And if you use an SLS printed barrel mount, you can pretty much just treat it like a factory gun.
Yeah.
And roller delay is really a nice, reliable action against all forms of bad ammunition. They tend to work no matter what. Yeah.
It's my favorite thing.
Operated off of like peak case pressure combined with total bolt thrust, which is just a very neat thing because your pressure curves can be all over the place. I'm sure you may be aware of this story where whenever the Spanish and Americans would do NATO training trials, the Spanish would always sort of like hover around the U.S. at the range because the U.S. treated mags generally as disposable, and U.S. mags would work in the setmies reliably. And so once the U.S. was done training, the Spanish troops would all swoop in and pick up the U.S. mags and then disappear with them like the rats they were. And then just sort of on the flip side of that, U.S. troops and French troops, supposedly most worst with French troops in their FAMASs, would take Spanish ammo and try and put them in their guns and blow them up, because the Spanish weren't like really doing pressure testing for like gas port pressure or anything like that, because their guns are roller delayed. They were putting whatever they wanted in this as far as gunpowder goes, because it would just work in their guns. And so there was a standing order that went out to NATO countries saying, if you're not Spanish, do not use Spanish ammo. Like they've completely fucked up what we're trying to do with your 5.56 being a NATO standard, because they're just going, yeah, it works in our guns. You guys should have something roller delayed.
Yeah, and the FAMAS is pressure sensitive. You can blow those things up with bad ammo pretty easily.
Yeah, as a I adore French guns, but like I will happily admit that lever delay is not real. You have barely convinced your gun that it's not a high point.
Let's just bring back the Blish lock. We'll be great.
Oh gosh. Oh,
we've got a video coming out that you'll love.
We did some science regarding Blish locks and what happens when you take them out of Thompsons that are supposed to have them. And I won't spoil it too much, but I will say that the chart looked extremely linear and had a line of best fit that was entirely linear. And the best fit line was like a 0.999 R squared. And I'm not trying to say that means Blish lock is nonsense, but we've got some interesting scientific data we did uncover. Yeah,
it was 0.999 R square with bolt mass, like
between bolt mass and velocity. So it's Blish lock is it's actually dead weight.
No, it's totally real. It's totally real.
It sticks together because of the.
It's just like I'm gonna hit on a nerve for Karl. It's just like magnet delay. It's totally real.
No more of that. Let's not talk about that again.
It's just like peanut butter delay.
The extreme pressures of 45 ACP makes the brass stick to
It makes the brass get different. And you know what else makes brass get different? Attorney General Letitia James. She has announced a very successful gun buyback where 82 guns were turned in. Look at these fucking guns. We have a Calico M100. We have a
Colt H bar, maybe it might be
no. That's I think that's an AR-10. It's a DPMS pattern AR-10.
Yeah. It's definitely
a shitload of Raven arms, Walther P22, a Wasser 10, and a Ban era Kajir gun of some description. And also naturally some black powder stuff. Some Derringer, so these were clearly hot guns, right?
Every single one of those is another potential tragedy averted.
Yeah, the tragedies have been diversioned. Look at this guy. Sorry, can I get a nugget? No, you're not taking this away from me. I'm gonna do a can I get a physiognomy check?
This is they feed the guns to him in the back, actually.
Look at this dude. And he's standing, he's like, I hope he took it home, because those are cool guns.
Yeah, it's always sad to see.
No, that's not Chinese. Look at the rivets.
Yeah. None of these are sort of like relic status or what have you, but it's always a shame to see.
It's a high number.
I would give them $5 more.
Easily $5 more. But yeah, this
guy's so proud of himself.
Imagine running that buyback and thinking you did something.
It's awful.
These guys all know it. Look,
he knows it. He doesn't. He's proud. He's proud.
He's just happy to be hanging out.
Those three guys in the middle, they think they did something good. This guy knows
this guy was like, I want to go home.
This guy knows it's a waste. He knows that AK is going in his truck once this is done.
Yeah. And what are these? That's a long boy.
That's the Shump gun.
They got double grandpa's duck getter. Yeah. So yeah, nothing super relic status, but still just like that was a good tax dollarino, my friends. You did it.
Gun crime in New York is solved.
It's done. It's over. And you know what else is over? You paying too much on your credit card processing fees if you're a gun company. Guys, FFLpaymentprocessing.com, industry leading rates by FFLs for FFLs. FFL Payment Processing is a company that won't let you down. They don't care that you are an FFL, because guess what? Look at the name. It would be weird if they took your business away for that. So go to FFLpaymentprocessing.com. Let them know that I sent you. All right. What's next? This is interesting. So Cooper Kirk did a good one. Finally, Minnesota's 18 to 20 gun carry case has been formally struck down. So the 8th Circuit has upheld the mandate, So it is officially done and dusted. Minnesota's law banning carry for those between 18 and 20 is bonked. So thank you to Cooper Kirk for that win. That's a good one. I don't have much to say about that. Do you guys?
That's a good thing whenever the good things do good.
Yeah, the good thing. Karl, how are you on time?
I don't know. What time is it?
We're reaching up on an hour.
I can do a little more.
Okay. All right. Because we've only got one more story, then an ad read.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay. So this is interesting. Unfortunately, we tend to have to follow notable happenings on this channel because people want to hear about that. It's firearms news, right? So we're all familiar with Colin Gray, right? He was the individual who shot a bunch of kids in Georgia, but also Colin Gray. Oh no, it was Colt Gray. Was his name?
Colt.
Yeah, Colt Gray.
Which was
color.
Not funny, but in a morose way, it was weird seeing people who like Googled Colt Gray once the shooting happened, and then a bunch of AR-15s come up because like Colt Gray is the color that everybody wants to emulate when they make their retro clones.
Yeah, the original Colt anodizing or whatever.
There was a bunch of like
gray. Yeah.
There's a bunch of blue anon types going like, this whole shooting's a conspiracy to sell Colt rifles. You search Colt Gray, look, all that comes up is AR-15s. It was preordained by the New World Order. And it was like, it's just because it's a color and a name.
It's like, no, guys, a long time ago, Colt tried to make black.
And they really sucked at it.
Yeah. It's just like Plum with the AK stuff, right? Everyone's like,
oh yeah, that was the thing. I forgot about that. Plum.
Yeah, no, it's like the Russians are like, we can't make black, it's too cold.
And then American consumer market's like, yes, please.
I mean, I didn't forget about it, but I remember you reminded me. I remember that was such the thing for a long time.
Yeah, you know that's also the thing on Plum Blue stuff. It was that they couldn't get the salts hot enough. That's why it came out Plum.
Well, and high silicon content, nickel. I think too also does that. Nickel and silicon can both lead to.
They can do that.
Bluing.
Well, but if you get the temperature high enough, you can still get it black.
Interesting.
Even with the super high nickel and silicon stuff, and it was cold, so that wasn't going to happen. But at least I'm pretty sure that's what it is. You can tell me. Go feed my engagement and tell me I'm
everybody argue in the argument section about what makes the gun purple.
Yeah, how'd the gun do with it purple? But anyway, in that case, the father, Colin Gray, was charged with murder for his actions here. There's the cat himself with the court cops with their tactical tats. Colin Gray, 54, the father of accused Appalachia high school shooter Colt Gray, 14, enters the Barrow County Courthouse for his first appearance on September 6th in Winder, Georgia. So this is interesting because I don't know if you guys remember, but not that long ago, in that Michigan notable case, the parents of Ethan Crumbley were indicted for involuntary manslaughter and convicted and sentenced to 10 to 15 years. They were the first parents ever charged and convicted in a child's notable. And I thought back then, I was like, that's a bit of a stretch, right? Like I can totally see civil liability, right? Negligent entrustment and stuff like that. But I don't know about criminal culpability, just because to get criminal culpability for the criminal acts of a third party, you have to be acting with what we call wantonness, which is a level above recklessness, where it's like, I literally don't care about human life. That's like, driving down the road, drinking and just like shooting a Tech 9 out the window, right? That's not intentional conduct, but it's worse than reckless. And the conviction was upheld there. And so I think that this case is them taking the next step, and seeing if they can push the envelope. That said, the facts in this case are kind of fucked up, where, the FBI, to stop myself, the the FBI had like went and talked to his dad, right? And was like, hey, this kid's like saying weird shit. Like, is he okay and everything? And the dad is like, oh yeah, no, he doesn't have any access to guns and whatever. And then after that, proceeds to buy the kid a gun. Which is, even us gun nuts think that's odd.
That's a little.
I would hope that most people would think that's odd. So it's these are such difficult things to talk about because like I'm not a fan of like regulated legal laws defining what safe storage is or any of that because that's nonsense and there's lots of problems there, right? Social economic issues, all sorts of problems occur with that sort of thing. But at the same time, I don't know, and again, morally and legal are not always aligned, but like there's a level of negligence on the part of the parents there that is pretty gross. And
it's worse than negligence for sure.
Right. I mean, it's and so hot take. These aren't, I mean, we love them. They're important. They're part of our culture. They're part of our rights. But a level of that sort of nonchalant defiance of the fact that they have a troubled child and arming them with something like that is a problem. And I don't know what the way you handle that is, but I'm going to say this: responsibility, freedom requires responsibility, right? So, like, if your friend is drunk, blackout drunk, and you're like, "Here are the keys, take my car," that's bad. That's a problem. Like, there's a problem there, and them doing that is similar to that. And there's lives that were not directly cost or lost because of them, but very indirectly and maybe to a certain degree directly, because they knew, not only because of their own interactions with the kid, the FBI talked to them about it. And to just blow that off, I don't know where you go with that legally, but there's a problem there for sure.
So let me devil's advocate here. I am I'm playing make-believe now. I'm an American person, and I'm not a big fan of the government, right? I know that, suspend your disbelief, right? I'm not a big fan of the government. The FBI comes and tells me they're saying this liberal stuff that my kid was, too aggressive on social media, and they don't like the posts he was making, and I'm like, what happened to my First Amendment? And I say, get the heck off of my lawn. And I look at my kid and he seems fine. And so I said, you know what? I think whatever. And so I let him pop off a few cans, right? Is that a different story?
It is. And I guess we don't know. I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and say, I don't know enough about their interactions with the kid and everything going on to be able to understand all of that, right? I guess that's what the court's going to have to figure out. But I would say, depending, I can't make that decision here because I don't know enough about what they knew or didn't know. But if they knew that if they were fully aware that there was serious mental health issues afoot, I can see why this is why they would try to pursue that legally.
Yeah.
But I don't know enough about what they knew to say that.
But the thing is, the charging document only says that the father knowingly allowed him to possess the weapon. That's pretty naked.
Right, it could be a lot of things.
Yeah, and I mean, like, and again, I'm being devil's advocate, and go in the cope section, tell me, you didn't know because the policeman said this, and so obviously you're not taking that as pure fact, right? God forbid I'm a defense lawyer, right? And I'm a little suspicious about what the badges say. And bear in mind, I think, like, if you want my gut check, I think it's probably was stupid and idiotic, right? Most likely, right? Most likely your gut of the situation is correct.
That's where I'm coming from here, yes.
Yeah, most likely. But I think we should always check ourselves and be like, well, where are we getting that information from? We know the result, right? We know that there's a concept in law that I think is really informative to day-to-day life. And that's the question of whether the harm that resulted was inherent in the risk that you took. And generally, if the harm was inherent in the risk that you took, you should be liable for the damages. what has to be there for the harm of your kid killing people? Like, what level of risk has to be there? What kind of information do you need to have? Is it just that he's sad and depressed? A lot of people say I'm depressed, right? And I like to be given guns. It's one of my favorite things to be given.
Sure.
I was given several on my wedding day. So that was, an important thing. So I don't want that to be enough, right? So what's enough?
So
what do you think? What's the minimum?
Let me ask the hard question here. From what I'm hearing, are you saying that you agree that there is a line, but we don't know where it is, and we don't know if they'll be able to define it?
No, I'm being a lawyer. I'm being Socratic here because I have no. So the thing is, under the common law, there is a line, and it's murky. The question is how, and it winds up, because that's what juries do. Ordinary people have to decide where that line is. So the instructions that they would be given under the common law, right? I may be given slightly different instructions in this case. Would be, did he knowingly provide? Well, wait, no, because that's just straight negligent entrustment. He's straight up being charged with murder, right? And he was also charged with manslaughter and stuff like that. But with murder, it's actually no. This is fun. Let's pull. This is Georgia. What are the elements of murder in Georgia?
Yeah, see, murder. I thought murder means intent, right? Like that he intended to have people killed.
Okay, so.
But maybe that's not how Georgia defines murder.
This is one of these funny things where it's actually different in every state, and federal murder is almost never charged. So this is Georgia code. A person commits the offense of murder when he unlawfully and with malice aforethought, either express or implied, causes the death of another human being. Express malice is that deliberate intention unlawfully to take the life of another human being. So this is that's a separate definition that enhances number one. This is felony murder, which is basically anyone who dies while you're like carjacking and things is a result of your murder. A person commits the offense of murder in the second degree when in the commission of cruelty to children in the second degree, he or she causes the death of another human being, irrespective of malice. Person convicted of the offense of murder shall be punishable by death, by imprisonment for life without parole, or by imprisonment for life. Murder in second degree, not less than or more than 20 years. So this, if I'm going to guess, is the murder definition they're going to go with, right? So now our elements are in the commission of cruelty to children in the second degree, causes the death of another human being, irrespective of malice. All criminal laws require some level of mens rea, but this specifically says irrespective of malice. So there's two ways we can read it. One is that it's strict liability with respect to the death, which is the same way it's written in felony murder. So that means we don't need to worry about any intent to the death of the third person. So let's look up now Georgia Code, cruelty to children, the second degree. Any person commits the offense of cruelty to children in the second degree when such person with criminal negligence causes a child under the age of 18 cruel or excessive physical or mental pain. All case notes. So no, there's only one definition in the second degree, and it has to be second degree under that statute. Causes a child under the age of 18 cruel or excessive physical or mental pain with criminal negligence. Okay. So here's how the analysis works out.
Under those words, I can see why they're going where they're going.
Yeah, here's how the analysis works out. Criminal negligence can be understood as negligence plus. So there's ordinary negligence, which is car accidents, right? You weren't looking or whatever. It's a little bit more than that, right? A little bit. It's not like a percentage math thing, but I'd say if ordinary negligence is you are paying 33% attention, criminal negligence is 45, right?
Sure.
So was he 55% below the normal standard of care when he gave the gun to this kid in these circumstances? And then that gets you there.
Right.
Because it doesn't mention proximate causation. That's a constitutional argument, right? Because usually you need proximate cause. And so there's factual cause is flapping of the butterfly's wings. Like you can say it took down the Titanic. Proximate cause is it reasonably foreseeable? And that gets, is the harm within the risk? So that would be a defense strategy, is to say it wasn't, there was an intervening criminal act by the son. That's how I would defend it. And then the manslaughter charges are going to have the same connection. It's just going to be a level below.
Well, I feel like the analogy I made earlier still fits, which is
It does.
if he knew the person was blind drunk and gave them his keys, and then they went and drove through a crowd, that fits that same narrative, right? And so
I think it does.
It boils down to, did he know the level of issues amongst that was circling around his son or not? And I don't know the answer to that. I don't know.
Here's how you get a clear win if you're the government, you're the prosecution, would be if the facts were such that it was manifest that this kid had desire to hurt other kids. Because then it's almost as if, because then it's more, the question is one like, oh, if only I had a crowbar, then I could Wile E. Coyote style put this rock over the ridge and land on both trolleys, right? Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hand that person the crowbar. Like you hear him say all that, and then you hand them the crowbar. You proximately cause the result, using an instrumentality. So if he was saying, I want to hurt people, I want to hurt children, right? Not right. I want to, my classmates, they deserve whatever.
Right.
Then I could see that being a clear win for the government.
If they can prove that he knew that and still thought it was okay to give him the gun, then yeah, I think they have the case, right? The thing is, I here, sitting here in the desert, don't know what he knew or didn't know about his son. I don't know that. So I don't, but I can see under the way that law is written that they think that maybe he did, or at least they're trying.
And also, juries can do this thing where they just ignore the law.
Wow, sure. Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another thing, right? We're being all pointy headed and academic about it, when in reality, the jury is perfectly capable of going, fuck that guy. I have seen juries do some pretty stupid shit. Like in one case, there was a case dealing with somebody who had stolen a $100 bill. And there was an aggravating factor if the theft was valued at more than $100. And the jury determined that he had stolen the $100 bill, but that it was not worth $100.
Okay.
So juries can, right? So, if I was the defense lawyer, I would be avoiding a jury. Like, I would be desperately trying to plea out.
But if you were the prosecution, you can see why they're doing what they're doing too, based on what you just read in Georgia law.
Exactly. Yeah,
it makes sense from a legal perspective. It's funny, this history stuff. Like, I'm such a history nerd, but I'm gonna wrap it back to another topic I care about: Wyatt Earp. But like this does tie in. Judge Spicer, when he was having hearings on whether or not there should be murder charges placed upon Earp and Holiday for what they did at the OK Corral, his previous experience trying to prosecute the Mountain Meadow massacres in Utah, Mountain Meadow Massacre, was that he was going to deal with jury nullification, because when he was trying the Mountain Meadow Massacre, the entire community was at that time Mormon, and the jury was entirely Mormon, and jury nullification existed based on when he was trying to prosecute people for the massacre. And so when he was hearing the hearings in Tombstone about the OK Corral engagement, or the fight on Fremont Street, he had in the back of his head jury nullification existed with this case as well, and it at least tipped his hand onto whether or not he wanted to try to file murder charges against the Earps. So, when you said juries can do crazy stuff, this history continues on, right? And that's an example, a historical example of where we have that case still reverberates in Arizona law, and it was based on previous experiences with jury nullification. So it's real. It's a real thing.
Yeah, it's fascinating how political it is. Mm-hmm. Some would say it's a feature. I would call it a defect. But But you know what doesn't have defects? Patriot Patch Company. Guys, go to patriotpatch.co. They are the longest time supporter of the show. They have available for sale such items. Look at that. It's the Statue for Victory, Power Armor, American Flag, Chain Gun. If you go to Patriot Patch Company and join the Patch of the Month Club, you'll get stuff like this every month. You'll never know what it's going to be. It's high quality. I promise you that. You get the patch, the sticker, and concept art. And guys, there's other great stuff. Patriot Patch Company. They got cleaning mats. They got gift cards. They got various, and they got a sundry as well. And don't forget to use promotional code TWIG10, TWIG10, to get 10% off of your order, guys. patriotpatch.co, longest time supporter of the show. Well, that is all the stories I had. There were a couple other options, but it was literally just companies chambering something in either 5.7 or 10 mil, which is
10 is more of a meme round than 5.7. I'll say that right now.
That's controversial. This is the biggest, most controversial thing Carl's ever said.
You're in a.
Everybody wants everything in 10 millimeter and then never buys it. I don't get it.
No, that's certainly true. And then nobody wants something in 5.7.
Yeah. Nobody wants.
I mean, don't get me wrong. 10 millimeter is a really dope round. It's awesome, but like, the fact is, like, they like, I want this in 10. Got it. You should make it in 10. Why isn't it in 10? And the reason it's not in 10 is because nobody.
You're not going to buy it.
A small handful of people buy it in 10, and the rest of everybody else buys it in 9 millimeter, right? So they don't bother.
I did buy the High Point 10 the moment it came out.
Oh, did you?
I was like, I need to support this company. They're doing it. But this is also, I adore 10 millimeter. But what I really like is the reason I buy so much 10 millimeter is so that I can then have brass to turn into 9 Dillon to then be the most aggravating person.
My favorite thing about 10 millimeter, besides that it's a cool round, is when ammunition was at the worst, I was getting 10 millimeter for cheaper than 9 millimeter because there was less demand for it.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's funny. Well,
I was joyfully shooting 10 millimeter cheaply when everyone else was scrounging to buy like 1 9 millimeter round. It was kind of fun.
And I remember at the beginning of that when 5.7 was cheaper than 9 mil, and then everyone was like, "Gosh, 5.7 is cheaper than 9 mil," and then the next day it wasn't.
Right.
Yep.
10 millimeter still isn't. Actually, 10 millimeters. I don't know what the price is right now, but you can still get it pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
I think it's reasonable. And I like it. The only problem is you can't get 10 millimeter. You can get 40 mil.
Most of it is like 40 S&W plus P, if that. Yeah.
Well, some of it's even like, Federal's 10 millimeter FMJ is loaded cooler than most 40 Smith & Wesson, which is just utterly hilarious. It's sitting at like 920 foot per second from an MP5. Even a 10 mil MP5 will crap it out like 920, 960, and an MP5 N40 will do most 40 full metal jacket, both 180 grain rounds, but it'll spit it out 980, 1020 range. So you're getting hotter from most 40.
But the cartridge case is longer, therefore it's 10 millimeters. So.
Yeah, the cartridge case is that's all that matters.
It's great. Well,
under Georgia law, it's still 10 millimeters. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's look up the elements of 10 millimeter.
You can reload it to 10 millimeter,
Yeah.
shoot it, get the cartridge cases, and then make your own.
No, neck it down to 9 millimeter and be a man. It's 9 Dillon.
Yeah,
the Cleveland Screamer. But yeah, no, thank you so much for coming. It was great. We hope to have you on again soon. We've got some other topics that we were talking about that we didn't cover now that we will touch on next time. But no, it was a great discussion, man. Super appreciate you making the time to come out.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And hopefully I brought some interesting angles to the conversation. Like, I know we all like fluctuate in our own circles of these spaces because it's such a broad topic. And it's always interesting to have those different circles come into a confluence and have a conversation about it from unique angles.
That's not true for me. I'm a completely perfect individual, and I'm perfectly spread across all of the spectrums.
Oh, okay. Well, I apologize. I didn't realize you were so perfectly balanced. I'm more.
Everyone loves me.
Me
and Ivan are allowed.
I admit it. I'm min-max, so you get what you get. Yeah.
Me and Ivan are allowed at everyone's Thanksgiving. They keep telling us so.
Well, don't do anything to the chicken.
But yeah, so do you want to shill anything real quick before we go?
Yeah, why not? I mean, so that's it. Yeah, I just dropped. I haven't done inRange merch in years. But I just dropped 3 new shirts on a new inRange merch store. If you're interested in that, you can find that at inrange.tv/store. Yeah,
I saw those
store.
shirts.
If you go to inrange.tv, you can see the link. It says merch. That just dropped yesterday. And stay tuned. We're adding lots of cool new stuff to if you're interested in my style or our style of competition. We got brutality matches coming up. We got one coming up in a week in West Virginia. We're going to have more coming up in 2025. And I'm real excited about 2 divisions in particular. We've got Deadeye, which is my love for Old West stuff, and we're seeing people come out and shoot Deadeye stuff. We got Deadeye Posse, where you can actually have 2 people shoot in the same stage simultaneously with cowboy guns, which is pretty cool. And we've got Cyberpunk, which is the one I'm really excited about, where we're leaning into the most modern everything. So including up to and including you could use drones on your stages to neutralize targets. So I'm hoping to see people do really cool stuff with Cyberpunk. So that's those are the things I'm leaning into. And one of the things I want competition to be, at least with the ones we run, is give the opportunity to see people do unique, interesting, cool stuff with designs and ideas that push the envelope forward instead of the rules holding you back, where it's like no red dots or only iron sights or only red dots. We want to open the door to make it where we're like, wow, I never thought that would work, and it did.
Iron dot.
So that's what we're doing with Cyberpunk.
Yeah, what do you think of this shirt?
It's an all right one.
Yeah, what about this one?
I like the Blish. I at one point I could pronounce it correctly because it was really good in Call of Duty. It was Bliskowika, I think.
Oh yeah. That was the that was the home-produced Polish resistance submachine gun.
Made using thin barrels and shit they cobbled together from.
But they made an effective weapon, even though they were, like completely crushed and occupied.
This shirt is truly confusing. This implies the baby has certain autonomy.
That shirt is there for people to figure out.
Is that a large baby, or is this a .1 caliber Glock?
It's one of those Calibri pistols, the little.
Oh,
yeah.
How many shirts do I have to buy to get the baby?
Speaking of that, have you ever? I'm sure you've seen them. The really tiny reproduction model guns that function. Yeah. Those are so cool. Like that's just a cool example of like the ability to machine neat stuff.
I buy those because I'm a sucker.
Yeah, no,
the little ones that chamber and everything.
Yeah, seeing that stuff, seeing people like miniaturization of stuff and those little miniature guns that actually work. That's super neat. I don't know. It's obviously has no purpose except gee whiz, but it's cool.
Gee whiz is a big one.
No, gee whiz is neat. That's something I think we forget about in Gunland a lot. It's like so much of stuff is self-defense and all that, which of course that's what these are for. But you know what? It's also fun, and we should enjoy these things. It's a sport. It's a hobby. It's a culture. It's something to enjoy, build friendships over. That's what I try to do with the matches, hopefully. And we should enjoy this. Like if you lose sight of having fun with this and enjoying this thing that we can do, then I mean, yeah, the rights are there, and that's the most important part. But having fun matters too, and enjoying this stuff that we like and love matters. And I hope that we can focus on that too sometimes. It doesn't always have to doesn't have to always be about the grim stuff.
No, I'm 100% with you, and like that's why I always say, if you want to advance gun rights, and I don't know if you've ever heard me say this, but my philosophy is the best thing you can do for gun rights is take somebody shooting, don't scream at them, be generally smiling, and look like you're having a good time the whole time. That's how you're going to make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, how many people? I mean, I can't think of a person I know that's into this topic that hasn't taken someone out that was like at least curious or even scared. And if you treat that right, it demystifies. Like the reason they're scared is because they've had this fear beat into them by a media and a world for years, like their whole life. And there's reasons. Like there's also reasons people are afraid because maybe something bad happened to them in their past. That's another thing to think about. But like demystification of technology in general, whether it's guns or other stuff, opens up venues to have conversations we don't have otherwise. And that's I appreciate that. I agree.
For sure. Well, anyway, guys, that's it for the moment. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time.